Stop looking for superhuman founders. They don't exist. The people you admire are not more disciplined or harder working or higher IQ than you. No, they've just learned a fundamental truth, which is the fact that every time you are stuck in business, you don't have business problems. You have a personal operating system problem manifesting in your business. It means you're not thinking clearly enough, focusing deeply enough on the right thing, or executing fast enough. And that's because your internal architecture needs an upgrade, because you cannot perform your operating system. If your brain isn't working the right way, you must update the brain, not trying to mindset your way out of that situation. And I learned this hard way because I had a concussion in a bike accident in Madrid. And I had to learn what I'm about to show you, the 4-layer rewrite that allowed me to start executing and performing at the highest level. And if you apply this, I guarantee you're going to have an incredible breakthrough in your business. Layer number 1 is what I call the biological reboot. Most founders try to execute their way until they eventually burn out. So they add more coffee, they cut more sleep, they push harder, but there's a constraint they're missing. Their biology has a performance ceiling. And when you breach it, your prefrontal cortex, the part that actually thinks in your brain, goes offline. So one night of bad sleep impairs your reaction time and judgment to the same level as if you were legally drunk. And that is not your motivation failing, it's your whole system shutting down. And the best protocol for this, to really nailing your sleep, is waking up at the same time every day, having some sort of movement, ideally for 20 minutes before 9 a.m. because it triggers dopamine, have a protein-first breakfast to stabilize your blood sugar, and have 0 screens 60 minutes after you wake up and before you go to sleep. Simple, boring, non-negotiable. But there's also a hidden layer on your biology, which is your intrinsic compass, your sense of meaning. Because a lot of founders work extremely hard on things they don't care about. So their purpose is not aligned with what they need to be doing. And think about it. Could you execute 100-hour weeks for 5 years on something you thought was meaningless? Of course not. Your nervous system would fight you at every step. Your heart rate spikes, your cortisol floods your blood, and your ability to think clearly collapses. So the fix to this is 10 minutes of silence every morning. Not necessarily meditation, just silence, no input. And ask yourself, am I working on something I actually believe in? And if the answer is no or unclear, realize that this is something to work on. Otherwise, your biology will sabotage your execution. And that is layer 1. But even with perfect biology, there's a second system running in the background that most founders never fix, and it's killing your output, which is your mental layer. See, your brain is not neutral. Every thought pattern you repeat carves deeper neural pathways. You end up becoming very good at thinking what you have thought many times. And reactive loops train your brain to spiral. So intentional reframes train your brain to think differently. And there's plenty of research about self-talk. If you have chronic negative self-talk, your cortisol jumps by 30% and decreases your working memory by about 20%. So in essence, every time you are saying to yourself that you're behind or you're not good enough, you're literally making yourself dumber. And there's a pattern I'll observe in 400 plus founders, which is they oscillate between two streams. One is, fuck it, nothing is going to work, I should just go get a job. And then the following week, I'm building something massive, this is absolutely gonna work. That is broken programming fighting itself. And the fix is very simple, but it's not necessarily comfortable. I like to do the 6 breath rule, which is before making any decision, before entertaining any weird negative narrative, you take 6 deep breath. I don't care if it's box breathing, it's his physiological cycle, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you take control of your nervous system. And then you run a quick reframe protocol. If you catch yourself thinking I can, you counter with finding the facts. How do you know this can be done? How do you know this hasn't been done before? How do you know that you are, for some mysterious reason, not able to do it? If you get into the habit of cognitively reframing, you'll soon find how most of your internal dialogue is just plain negative. And if you rewire that, your baseline stress level drops, your performance goes up, and over time, you become much more capable of handling uncertainty. Because if you have thoughts of doubt and you repeat them, you build highways of doubt. But if you repeat possibilities, you build solution highways. And this works at every level of business, provided you're actually working on the right thing, the strategic layer. Imagine two founders, both work about 60 hours per week. And founder A chases every opportunity, new features, new partnerships, new markets. And his focus is scattered across 12 initiatives. Founder B identifies one leverage point and goes surgical. Who do you think has made more progress after 1 year? Well, if you look at the data, founders pursuing more than 3 goals at the same time statistically fail by about 92%. And if you have 5 competing priorities, you're guaranteed to fail. And not because you're not working hard enough, but because your brain pays a switching cost every time you change focus. So the strategic lockdown, as I like to call it, is asking yourself, what is the most important layer every quarter? The thing that will compound the most. Not 3, 1. Then step 2 is to kill everything that is not that goal. And what's left is the actual strategy. Everything else is distraction dressed as ambition. And step 3, which a lot of people forget about, is tracking it. Every single Sunday, track, are you getting closer to the goal? If no, something is broken. I've seen founders literally double or triple their revenue within 4 to 8 weeks by cutting their goals from 5 to 1. Now, that should be enough to help you break through. But there's a 4th layer, which I call the execution layer, that guarantees you get there faster than anyone else. Because most people think that execution is about goals. No, it's about consistently becoming the same person in your mind by assuming you are already that person. I'll say it again. You become someone you already assume you are. It's all about identity. Formula 1 drivers don't wake up saying, I want to drive fast today. No, they are racers. Everything they do, their preparation, the recovery, the mental rehearsal, everything flows from identity. That's why they can perform under pressure without thinking. Same principle applies to you. Instead of saying, I want to be productive, you say, I'm a disciplined operator. Instead of saying, I want to execute better, you say, I follow my system. And your brain craves consistency, but you have to engineer the right type of consistency, which is consistency based on who you are becoming. What is the identity that you are building? What is the type of person that you are committing to becoming? And then you start living as that person immediately. It's not about who you are right now. It's about who are you going to be in the future. That's the key. Because when you design systems based on that identity, you eventually become that elite identity. And once your identity shifts, peak performance stops being forced. It stops being your default setting. And that is a 4-layer system that I had to rebuild from the ground up after my accident. And it has already helped 400 plus founders scale very fast, not by working harder, but by architecting their whole self around their goal.